It's really about helping people understand that their credit is an investment tool to build wealth. My husband and I went to Italy a couple of years ago. I would say about 70% of our trip was completely paid for with rewards.
How do you freeze your DMV records?
Directly through the DMV portal and through LexisNexis.
You can add somebody as an additional card holder as young as 16?
Oh no, you can add someone as an additional card holder when they're 12.
Oh.
Yeah.
A lock versus freeze. What's the difference?
Very good question.
Yeah.
So,
in life, there's a blueprint for everything. There's no need to start over. Hear from industry leaders, those at the top of their fitness journey, and real estate gurus. They tell you exactly how they did it. All you have to do is listen, learn, and execute. This is The Blueprint with Brad Rice.
All right, guys, we're back to another edition of The Blueprint with Brad Rice. And today I've got a real treat for you because this is going to be so educational. It's all about credit, building your credit, maintaining your credit, improving your credit. I've got with me a pro. Her name is Angela Setters Bessard, and I have worked with Angela for a couple of decades.
yeah.
We've known each other. She is known as the real credit queen, and she's been in coaching and helping people improve their credit for more than 3 decades, from teaching credit score reliable techniques to restoration and even building credit. Nothing is impossible for Angela. She helps her clients achieve great results when it comes to their credit and their financial health. So welcome today, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly a pleasure to be here. And yes, we have worked together for a very long time. And I love what you just said because I want to say something. What I believe in is creducation.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So it's something.
Did you trademark that?
I sure did.
Okay.
You know I did.
I like it.
Yeah. It's really about helping people understand that their credit is an investment tool to build wealth. And it comes from both the personal side and the business side. So we can talk about both of those things today because I think it's very relevant, specifically in today's market, because there are so many influencers, there are so many people that have multiple entities. And one thing I think that is very important in the credit world is when you have an entity that you separate your personal credit assets from your business credit assets, because nobody wants to build their business on their own back.
I really do want to dig into that. But before we go that deep, because I know that's going to be important for a lot of people listening, like how do I build credit for a business so I'm not doing a personal guarantee and things of that nature? So I do want to dig into that. But something you touched on that's really prevalent in what I promote out there and I put on my socials is the building of credit, for our youth and understanding that, because we all know that financial literacy is really not taught in schools. I mean, we all agree to that. But you can learn so much more online and in TikTok and your social posts. Literally, there's so much information out there. YouTube, second largest search engine. And you can really learn these things. But having parents or having some educational tool for kids that are becoming adults and knowing how to get that established to begin with is really crucial. And I did this for my kids, but I'd love for you to take a few minutes and tell people how you can start building credit when you are maybe just under 18.
Oh, yeah.
Or just turning 18. How do you start
100%.
that?
Well, what I tell parents is that you should start the creducation, the credit education with your kids when they're 14. Okay? You really need to sit down. I tell parents, listen, we've all made mistakes in life. Okay? Share your mistakes with your kids. What kind of financial mistakes did you make or errors did you make when you were 20? When you were 30, when you were 40 or 50, it doesn't matter. Share those, but also sit down and help your kids understand how to use a checking account. Now everything, is on these amazing devices, and how to have accountability when it comes to using a credit card or, when you're earning money, when you're 14, create some creative ways that you can give your kids money and help them to manage it. Now, I did something really cool with my kids when they were 14.
Okay.
My husband and I sat down and we said, listen, how can we help our kids understand finance? Because, we have a responsibility. We are in the financial world. And the one thing we don't want to do is be hypocrites when it comes to that. We want our kids to know things. So we sat down when they were 14 and we said, listen, we're going to write you a check for your expenses on a monthly basis. So you going to the mall, you going to the movies, you buying lunch at school, whatever it is, and you're going to manage that money. So we took them to the bank. They opened a bank account. They had a custodial credit card, which they still have to this day. And
explain what that is. What is a custodial credit card?
A custodial credit card really is...
My advice for someone selling their home: number 1, do it yourself and save. Number 2, use HomePie.
HomePie makes it easy to buy or sell without an agent. I can list a home in minutes and start receiving offers right away from buyers.
When we discovered that we didn't have to lose $40,000 in agent commission just to upsize to a larger home, it was an obvious choice.
List your home for free at homepie.com. Keep your piece of the pie.
A custodial credit card really is where the parent or the custodian, because not everybody lives with their parents, manages that account and can say yes or no to charges. They have the full capability of looking at the account, putting money in the account. They really manage it.
So is this an account that is in the parent's name, but the kids are an extra card holder? Or is it literally in the kid's name and the parents just have access to it?
It's actually in both. It's in both. Yeah. So the bank will open up the account in both the child's name and the parent. But of course, because the child is under 18, there are certain limitations that they have in using the account.
Okay. So is this a credit card or a debit card?
This would be a debit card.
Okay. That's the difference.
Yeah. This would be a debit card. But there are great programs out there like Greenlight. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Of course.
Amazing program. And there are others like it, just so you know. But I think it's great, these programs that they come up with, like Greenlight, because it helps our kids understand the financial system.
Yeah, Greenlight's a great program to do that. I actually invested in a company called Gravy Stack that's now changing its name to Dinner Table, but that has gamified that process.
I think it's great.
As well. And so, yeah, I think that's really important. Going back to just this custodial account, obviously fantastic. You can do that starting at 14. Teach your kids, what is a checking account? They don't even know what that is. Most kids, even through college, don't even know what a checking account is. And
money
frankly,
grows on trees. Come on.
But I'll say this honestly. Like, do you really need a checking account? Like, do you today need a checking account? The answer really is no. No. Because you don't need to write any checks.
No.
Even as a business, you don't really need to. We do, and it's a tool we use because we have bookkeepers and accountants and so forth that we work with, and it's checks and balances. But you can do everything through an app. You can use ACH, wires. You can Zelle, Venmo. Like, there's so many different ways to transfer money and pay bills, put them on auto pay. Which I highly recommend. Everything be on automatic payment. Have an account.
But there's a trick to that, by the way.
Well,
we'll get into
trick?
that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, as far as like auto pay, I just to pivot there real quick. One of the biggest things that I see in my industry and when people come to me is, I had that on auto pay. I don't understand how I have 60-day late payment. So, yeah, have it on auto pay, but you still have to do the checks and balances.
You have to have money in your account.
Well, you still have to reconcile your credit cards. You still have to reconcile your bank account because you have to make sure that these payments are going through. Just because you have auto pay doesn't mean it's automatically going to pay.
That is absolutely true. And a lot, unless you're in business and you operate out of your email, like you're spending time in your email. Most people don't even really monitor their email. No. They get so much junk. If you send them something, you have to tell them, like, look in your email. And most of the time it's in spam. And so they're not seeing when they get notified of a payment not being made.
Yeah.
and it could go months without that. And I will tell you, and I think my kids are guilty of this. Maybe one isn't. One of my three. They don't reconcile.
Yeah.
They don't even look at it.
Right.
They just make sure they have money in their account. Now, I have taught them about auto pay and having money in your account and that sort of thing, but who knows if they're actually, if they're really reviewing things, if they're making sure that there's no fraud on their account.
Yep.
I can only do so much. My kids are adults now.
Yes.
And I do remind them, but I think that that's a really big problem as well, is reconciling isn't easy.
No.
And most don't do it.
Well, listen, we live in an age right now, and I'm going to go back to the whole thing that I talked about with my kids and why, yes, you don't have to have a checking account, but why I think it's important that we do have that so that we can stay accountable to what's going on with our money is I tell this little story. So I am a big person. I don't believe in buying things on apps. I really don't, because this generation, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? Everything is click, click, click.
Wait, you don't use Amazon, Angela?
Okay, yes, I do.
Okay.
But I'm saying and I'm going to tell you the story. So this was a few years back, but I have this coffee store that I really, really love to go to. And when I would come into the office, I would buy coffee for my entire staff. And, you just use the app, you order the coffees. You're not paying attention to how much it is at the end of the day. You're just ordering the coffees. My bookkeeper comes into my office and she's like, I was like, what? She says, who in the hell spent, am I allowed to say that?
You say anything you want. You can say anything you want.
Who in the hell spent $600 on coffee in a month?
Okay.
And I was like, no, I didn't spend $600. That's impossible. Show me that. And she shows me, and sure enough, I'm just clicking away, not paying attention. And that is the problem right now with this generation and all of the apps and managing all of your money on these apps and things of that nature. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because literally this morning I was on my way to the office. I stopped by a property. I have some construction going at and it was early in the morning. I thought, okay, I'm going to pick up a cup of coffee at Coffee Bean. I order it from the app, and there was an error on the app. And so I'm like, oh, shoot, it didn't go through. So I went back into it and I redid the order. And sure enough, both orders went through. Now, I didn't realize it till I got back in my car and I had my order and I was like, I got the confirmation in email, and I do pay attention to my emails. And I'm like, there's 2 confirmations there. What the heck? And I realized both orders went through. I went back in and got the other coffee, gave it to one of my staff. But you're right. The biggest thing, honestly, the biggest takeaway there is the reconciliation part of it.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen, and you're going to use apps because it's convenient and you get rewards and all these other things. But when that credit card statement comes in, you need to review it and need to make sure that it's accurate and there aren't things in there that are fraudulent or, like you said, there was some mistake. And that's what, 7 cups of coffee, $600, something like that.
Oh my God! Yeah,
The price
so
of
much,
coffee.
so much coffee and so many bagels. But also to your point about using apps and having a credit card attached to it, the other thing that I teach people is sitting down and having a plan on what credit cards you're going to use for what. Okay? Because I always say this, and I don't know who made this saying up, but if we don't have a plan, we plan to fail. And that's just the truth.
Yep.
And the thing is that a lot of people have all different credit cards paying different apps. And what I think you should do is have one credit card that's for your apps, okay? One credit card that you use for medical expenses, and so on and so forth. It's about really breaking it down to having a plan so that at the end of the year, when you're filing your taxes and things of that nature, you know where all of your expenses are.
It's
and
easy
how,
to track.
Yeah, and how your credit has helped you with that.
Sure.
And also, just talking about credit cards that have rewards and points and things of that nature. My husband and I went to Italy a couple of years ago, and we were there for a month, because luckily I get to work wherever I'm at. And I would say about 70% of our trip was completely paid for with rewards.
Wow.
Now, that was intentional because we sat down, we said, hey, this is what we want to do in 2022. We want to go to Italy. These are the places, these are the cities, these are the hotels, these are the places we want to go. And so we were very intentional about using a credit card that we knew was going to give us 3 times rewards at certain places. Yeah. And then also when you pay attention to the bills that come in, each credit card company has different destinations that you can go to that you can get extra rewards or extra points. It's all about paying attention because these credit card companies with retail companies, they're doing a lot of promotional advertising and whatnot, and they're trying to push you to use these companies, but there's a reward for doing it.
So you're one of those people that really does maximize this. I'll tell you what, it is a complicated process to navigate. I subscribed a long time ago to the Points guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Man, the amount of messages and emails that come through, like you can't even keep up. So I've asked my wife to take a look at these things. I don't know. Honestly, I don't think she does. But I do know people, just like you said, my controller here and her husband just took a 3-week trip to Italy on American Express points.
Yeah.
So if you know how to navigate that process, it's great. But I think this ties it, I want to bring this all the way back to youth and getting credit.
Yeah.
Because you talked about the custodial account. It is a bank account. It does have a debit card. You as a parent control that. And then migrating from that to when you are an adult and how to start building that credit. So what does that do for you, having the debit card? Does it do anything for your credit at all? Does it start building it? Doesn't at all. So what do you recommend as the steps to building that credit so that when you become an adult, you have the credit in place? Because I talk about this all the time. I am not a believer in a debit card.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I don't own one. I never have. I've never had an ATM card. I don't get money out of an ATM. I've just never had one. It doesn't offer you any protection, any fraud protection. I've seen it time and time again being in the mortgage industry when people use a debit card and then they get their account hacked and now they don't have any money in there and the nightmare to try and recover it. And most of the time they're not able to recover it. So I'm a really big believer in only having credit cards and using credit cards. But you've got to start establishing that credit when you're young.
Yeah.
And so tell everybody, what are those steps to start building credit?
So as I said, when you're 14, you can't get a credit card, even a secured credit card, okay, or a custodial credit card. You have to wait until you're 16, okay? There are many banks out there that will give you a custodial credit card when you're 16. But in helping your child to build credit, one of the greatest things that you can do is add them as an authorized user onto one of your credit cards. And what that does is all of the history that you have created over the years, even if you've had your credit card for 20 years and your child is only 14, all of that history is going to show up on their credit report, and it's going to give them a leg up when they turn 18, because what we really want to do with our kids is help them to be financially independent at the end of the day. And so starting this credit process when they're younger, the reason, again, I believe in starting them at 14 is really investing time in showing them actually going to the bank and understanding, making a deposit, making them look at those statements, okay? I agree with you on the debit card thing, but it's going to be different for your kids because they're not going to have the amount of money. They don't have a job. They don't have money going into their account that is at risk.
Yeah, it's educational at that point.
So we're really using it as a tool to educate them how to manage money.
Yeah.
Okay, how to manage risk to a certain point.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense if you can start that at 14. So you're saying that you can add somebody as an additional card holder as young as 16?
Oh, no, you can add someone as an additional card holder when they're 12.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
Does every bank allow that at 12 years old?
No, but a lot of store cards do.
Okay.
So I remember when I was a little girl, my mom added me to her Neiman Marcus card because, she That's a whole nother story. But the point is that when we would go shopping, she would want to give me the experience of purchasing something and understanding what that meant. As a matter of fact, my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. And she was very, very frugal. She was a bookkeeper. And every year when it came to going to get my tough skin jeans, now I'm, aging myself.
Those are Sears, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So every time we would go to do that, she would go to her freezer and she would pull out her block of credit cards and she would give me the lesson of why we don't keep our credit cards in our wallet, because we will spend money that we shouldn't spend.
Funny.
But my mother had a whole nother philosophy than that. But yeah, so she added me onto her credit card when I was 12.
I had no idea you could do that at 12
yeah.
with the department store. So that's really good education. I also want to circle back to Tough Skins. Chris, maybe you could find Tough Skins up on our screen there, because people don't know what these are.
I know.
And
they were the
these
best.
These were the toughest. Chris, do you know what Tough Skins are?
No. Of
So
course
these
not.
were the toughest pants you could wear. We used to ride like our big wheels and that sort of
Yep.
thing, and stop with our knees on the
All of it.
asphalt. It had big, it's probably one word, tough skin jeans. And then you basically would take these big patches that are on your
Yeah.
knees, and they wouldn't wear out, because other jeans, they would just wear out. Our knees were always open.
Totally.
Now you have to pay extra for these pants that
Well,
have
now
the,
people want
the
holes
rips
in their
them.
pants.
But yeah, let's see if that's up. Yeah, don't scroll down just a little bit. That right there. See those with the pads on them? Reinforced knee. That's what they look like.
Yep.
They were Tough Skins. I don't know if those are them, but I see the labels. Yeah, that's it. They weren't the prettiest, but
the
man,
one
they
with
were,
the skate on it, those were the ones I had.
Yeah, those are the girl ones for
Yeah.
sure. Those, my friend, were the absolute. They weren't pretty.
Oh,
but
no.
Man, they were durable.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is you would grow out of them before you would wear out of them.
Oh yeah, totally,
Yes, so
100%.
That's so
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
All right. So as young as 12, you can be added to a department store credit card. Obviously, I don't think this is blanket. All of them do it.
Right.
So maybe
Most of them,
do
I
you
would
kn-
say.
Okay. So like a Macy's, Kohl's, Target. Okay.
Yeah.
Then 14, custodial account, debit card, bank. Start teaching them. So what's the earliest that you can get a secured card?
I'd say if you're considering joining the AmeriFund team, it's a really good idea.
We as processors at AmeriFund Home Loans support the loan officers in every aspect of the loan once it comes into processing, because we want them out there marketing themselves and originating more loans and supporting more borrowers.
Competitive commission plans are a given, and powerful technology is expected. But what truly sets us apart is our culture. We've built a solid support system for our loan officers. If you're interested in joining the AmeriFund team, go to amerifund.com/careers.
So what's the earliest that you can get a secured card?
16.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that the earliest you can be added as an additional card holder on a regular credit card?
No, 14. 14, you can be added on a regular credit card. Most banks will do that. I know American Express will.
Okay.
If you have credit cards with a bank, if you bank with Bank of America, Chase, you just have to ask them, but I'm pretty sure that most of them do.
Okay. So here's another thing that you need to ask the bank when you go to add your kid as an additional card holder.
Yes.
You have to ask them, will this show up on their credit report?
Yes.
Not all of them do, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So you don't want to waste your time adding them as a secured, as an
Authorized
user or
Yeah.
additional card holder, and then not get the benefit of it reporting to their credit.
Absolutely. And here's the cool thing. Everything is just so user-friendly nowadays, right? So you can actually go online, pull up your statement, pull up your account, and you can add or remove authorized users right online. And they will tell you, they have a disclosure there. Now, the key is understanding if they do not ask for the date of birth, then they are not going to report it on the credit report.
Great hint. Great hint.
Yeah.
So they got to ask for their date of birth and their social security number.
No, not their social security
Really?
number, just their date of birth. Yeah. Some companies will ask for their social security and some will just ask for their date of birth.
So if they're just asking for the date of birth, how do they know which credit report to, or how to find their credit report to report it to?
Well, interestingly enough, as far as the credit industry is concerned, it matches everything to name and date of birth. So it's
That's all you need.
It's not just Social Security. A lot of people think that. That's how you can have, let's say that you are a junior. My husband is a junior. He has had his father's information show up on his credit report before, okay? Because it has name recognition.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty common too, isn't it?
It is. It
and
is.
sometimes that's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing, especially if you're like a Johnson or something like that. You know, if you have a very popular last name or you have a popular first and last name, sometimes you can have commingling going on or a mix of information showing up on your credit report. And that's why it's so important, Brad, to make sure that you're monitoring your credit. One of the things that I'm a big proponent of, first of all, identity theft is the #1 crime in America right now. And especially because of the information that you can get online, okay? There is such thing as the dark web, and then there's the deep web. Okay.
Haven't heard that term before.
Yeah. So the dark web, unfortunately, I would say most of our information is on the dark web. Okay. You go to a doctor's office. What's the first thing that they ask you for? You know, your blood type, your kids, they have all of your information. And that goes into a central database where thousands of people have access to that information. So if you're not monitoring your credit to make sure that the information that's being reported and recorded is yours, then you can end up with a problem.
What's the best way to monitor it?
I would say, first and foremost, all 4 credit agencies. A lot of people don't know that there are 4 credit agencies and not just 3. So you have Experian, which is formerly known as TRW. So those of us that are our age walked around and said, oh, my TRW looks like X, Y, and Z. Well, a European company bought out TRW several years ago. They're called Experian. And actually, they are the leader in the industry as far as technology, enhancements. They're really great at what they do. So they're the leader. So you've got Experian, you've got TransUnion, which is a privately held company. They are not public, okay? And then you've got CBI Equifax, that is a publicly traded entity. And then you have the 4th one, which is called Inovus. Now, Inovus has been trying to break into the industry as far as giving credit scores and having the banks use their data and information for many years. They have not been successful just yet, but we do think that they will have success in 2026. So we will go from having the middle credit score to the average credit score.
Interesting. I have never heard of Inovus, and I've been in the mortgage business for 31 years.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like Discover? Like it exists and it's out there, but nobody really uses one.
Well, here's the interesting thing, okay? So I was on Channel 7 News a couple of months ago because there was a huge hack.
I want to talk about this. This is the public data breach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
3 billion records were leaked onto the dark web.
Yes.
Not the deep web.
I'm a victim of that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to chat a little bit about that.
Many people were. So, you know, Inovus being a credit bureau, okay, they have data that they get from all 3 of the other agencies. And they also have their other sources that they pull data from. So when you're having a background investigation done for you, or you're buying a property, there's a lot of information that is given to Inovus that you're not even aware of. Okay? So even though they're not an agency that publicizes credit scores because they don't have a credit scoring system, they will have a credit scoring system, so we still have to monitor and manage that agency. Now, going back to making sure that you are not a victim of identity theft, the other thing that I tell people to do, which is totally free, by the way, is to freeze their credit. It's super simple. You can have a free account with all 4 agencies. You can freeze and unfreeze it whenever you want to. I was buying a car several years ago, and I have on my license plate, it says Credit Queen. And I was in the finance office, and the finance officer says to me, don't you do something in credit? And I was like, yeah, why? And he says, well, I just tried to pull your credit and you don't have any. And I was like, oh, yeah, I have my credit frozen.
Yeah.
Now, I did that for shock value because number one, I don't want anybody that's pulling my credit thinking that they can pull it whenever they want to. So I let that guy know right there that I have my credit frozen and you won't be able to pull it once I leave this office. Because the thing is that is how identity theft happens. It happens with internal banks and organizations that have your information.
Yeah, so we'll talk a moment about freezing, but before we leave this idea of Inovus, again, because I'd never heard of it, so they have an online portal as well and an app where you can freeze your credit and all that sort of thing. Literally never heard of that before. The public data breach that took place, it was in August, wasn't it, of 24?
The funny part is that it didn't actually happen in August. That's when it became public.
Okay.
It actually happened in April.
Got it. Okay. So I started getting, on my monitoring, I started getting alerts in August, and I get these things all the time, and I'm like, whatever. But it was like 4 or 5 of them in a row, dark web, and then I'm like, what the heck? So I went in there, and I looked at it, and holy smokes, Angela, the amount of data, because it shows you like what was uncovered, what's on the dark. There were addresses I lived at that I didn't even remember the addresses. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I lived on that address, at that address. I mean, there was so much information there. And that's when I was like, this might be a different animal than everything else before. And I am careful, and I do have, regularly check my credit and all that sort of thing. But this was a little different.
Yeah.
And very shortly thereafter, I logged into one of my bank accounts, and there was another phone number and another email address I didn't recognize on my bank account. And so I immediately, of course, called my banker.
Yep.
What's going on?
Yep.
And they didn't get anything. And I didn't think, God, I didn't have to change I have like 25 bank accounts.
Yeah.
That would have been
a nightmare. Yeah.
But they went online and they attempted to, and they created an account and became a record in my profile. Mm-hmm. Now, the fact that these banks don't have a better way of, like, it really is mind blowing that they're not better at what they do. But it was right then that I said,
system.
You know what? I started to freeze because my credit gets pulled so much, being in business, doing different things with different investors and lenders and all that sort of thing. It is quite frankly, it's a little bit of a pain. But I said, okay, forget it. And I subscribed to LifeLock now. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to get your take on LifeLock. It was an easy way for me to access, the 3 portals at once and, kind of lock down some other things there. I like their system, but it was really a recommendation from a friend of mine who did have identity theft, called them after the identity theft, and he said they cleaned everything up for him very efficiently, and it was a very stressful situation they made easy on him.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of sold me on it. But tell me a little bit about that, about LifeLock or services like that you can subscribe to.
Well, we provide that service. Conquer Credit, my company, provides those services for people. And actually the freeze, unfreeze. So a lot of our clients are high net worth or, celebrities in the limelight, influencers, whatnot. They don't have time to unfreeze or freeze their credit. So they literally 24/7 will send us an email and let us know they want to unlock their credit because of whatever they're doing. And we do the processing for them.
Okay.
It's definitely very helpful to have a service that provides that for you, and specifically in the event if you are a victim of identity theft. Now, I want to preface this, okay? Just because you have your credit frozen does not mean that you will not be a victim of identity theft, and hence the reason why we have to pay attention and why we have to monitor our credit and pay attention to those alerts that you were talking about, right? It's so, so important because there are things that happen that don't require a credit check. Mm-hmm. Okay? You're getting an apartment, you're leasing a home. Yeah. There's so many different things. Also, there's theft that happens internally at banks. Someone knows someone and they'll just grant them a loan with your social security number
Sure.
without you knowing it. And they don't have to pull credit.
Yeah.
So this is why we have to really pay attention. So, I'm a big proponent of, LifeLock or any of the companies that provide these services.
At minimum, it's alerting you if there, let's say it does get to that point and an account is opened in your name, it tells you have a new account open.
They're
and then you can
shining
say,
the light. They're shining the light.
Wait, I didn't do that.
Yeah. But let me just say one thing too. The thing is that what you also have to do, talking about what happened with your bank, okay? There's another thing that needs to be frozen. There's a couple of other things that need to be frozen, and that is your early warning check systems. Okay, so you want to have that frozen because no one can open a bank account, a savings account, or an investment account in your name when that is frozen.
How do you do that?
Very easy. Go online, check systems, CHEX systems, and freeze it. You sign up for a free account and you can get it done.
Great information.
The other thing that you need to freeze is your DMV records. Do you know how many people register a car in your name and you don't know? I've had clients who literally, unfortunately, were being sued because of a very horrific accident that happened in their name.
And their name was on the title. Very interesting. This is really information I haven't heard before. Guys, this is powerful information. You have to, I'm writing this stuff down myself.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, you could, if you go to YouTube and you watch, I'm literally writing this stuff down.
Yeah.
What about a lock versus freeze? What's the difference?
Very good question.
Yeah.
So,
are you a tech investor looking to shape the future of real estate? HomePie is the #1 for sale by owner marketplace, and we are revolutionizing the way homes are bought and sold. I'd love to hear from you. Just email invest@homepie.com and let's chat. Now back to the show.
the difference is that a freeze is federally regulated, okay? A lock is a private label. So the agencies created the lock so that they could charge for it. But the federal government said, no, this is free because we have to protect consumers. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau came in several years ago and said, no, we're not going to charge consumers for this. I don't know if you remember back actually in 2017, Equifax had a huge breach.
They did, yep.
And what happened is all of the agencies started charging $10 for you to freeze your credit report with them. So each agency, you had to pay $10 a month to freeze your credit.
Wow.
And so the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau came in and said, no, if you're going to put consumers at risk, then you have to provide something to protect them. And so that's where the federal government came in and said, you know, we're going to create this process where you can freeze your credit and you can do it absolutely for free. Now, what happens when you sign up with all three credit agencies is they're going to market to you. And they're going to say it's better for you to have a lock than it is to have a freeze. But my friends, I'm looking in this camera and telling you that you do not have to pay for that service. It is 100% free.
Okay.
So don't fall for the okie doke.
The freeze and the lock are the same thing. You don't have to pay for a lock. Okay,
Absolutely.
Very good, because you do see that when you log into those things. How do you freeze your DMV records?
Directly through the DMV portal and through LexisNexis, actually.
Okay.
So LexisNexis, for those of you that are not aware.
And it's LexisNexus.
NEXUS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. LexisNexis, a lot of attorneys use that database. There's a ton of information in their portal, but they manage and mandate a lot of public records, and DMV records are public. So that's a part of, you know, when you're having
And you can go in there, create an account, and freeze just like you do on the bureaus.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. This is good information.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting when you're having a background investigation. My son right now is going through the process to become CHP, California Highway Patrol. And, you know, the background investigation that they do is so deep and wide. But a lot of government jobs require that. So it's really important that you're just protecting yourself at all levels. We're living in a world right now where information is so easy. The other thing that we do, Brad, just so you know, is we have reputation protection. So, a lot of times you can go on Google, you can see where someone lives. You can see the front of their house. There's information that is leaked on the web from, these influencers. There's a lot of information that's out there that you don't want on the internet. So there's also that too, protecting your reputation, especially if you're a business owner.
Yeah. So what about for celebrities? So they use blind trusts. And for those that don't know what a blind trust is, you can't look up a title. The title is public data, like how properties are held are public data. But if you put something in a blind trust, you don't know who the trust, who is the beneficiary of the trust. Their trustees are some third party, and so a lot of celebrities or even FBI or people that are in law enforcement, they'll use blind trusts. We come across that occasionally in the mortgage business. The other thing you see is when you are scrolling through Google Maps, you'll find some homes that are fuzzy and blurred out.
Yep.
That's a service that you have access to. If you're anybody,
Absolutely,
you can put in a request to blur out your home itself. Do you help with that sort of thing too?
We do.
Okay.
We do. And the other thing that we help with is home title lock. Now, a lot of people don't really know what that is for and why it's essential to have it. Specifically, I would say not necessarily in California per se. And talking about having a trust, it's much more difficult to steal the title of a home if you have a trust on it. However, I just have a very high-profile client that owns a home in Beverly Hills. It's worth over $50 million, and someone was trying to steal the title of his home, and he has a pretty big trust on his property, and it can be done. Just so you know, there are thieves out there that are so smart. And the scary thing, Brad, is that the new generation, these kids that are coming up, you got to think about it, okay? When I have a 13-year-old, all right, and when he was born, when he was 11 months old, he was using my iPhone.
Yeah.
At 11 months old. So the rapid way that technology is growing right now and the wisdom and understanding that the younger generation has about technology, you talk about hackers that are around right now, it's going to get 10 times worse.
Well, with AI as well, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to be vigilant about our protecting ourselves. Like you said, LifeLock, us, we're shining the light.
Yeah.
It's no one can protect you except you by knowing the information that's out there and knowing how to protect yourself so that
100%.
You don't get stung.
Such valuable information. All right. I want to actually roll back because I want to complete this thought about kids building credit, right, and young adults. So we started to go through those steps, and I just want to complete them. So you've got your secured credit card, right? Mm-hmm. You've got your additional card holder that reports to your bureaus. What's the next step after that? Because you really need to have 3 lines of credit when you want to go apply for a mortgage.
Well, when you want to apply for a mortgage, definitely. But if you just want to get a car, you only really need 1 line of credit. Now, the thing that I tell people also, young adults, is that there are 3 different types of credit scoring, okay? So you have consumer, financial, and auto. So when you go online and you go to Experian or you go to TransUnion or Credit Karma, a lot of people use, that is a consumer credit score. It's a fairer system because it's looking at your credit history for as long as you've had credit history, okay? But when you go to the bank or when you get a mortgage, then they're going to pull a financial credit score. And the financial credit scoring system is really only looking at the last 4 to 6 years of your history. That's what's included in the mathematical algorithm that's at play for you, okay? And that's why that system or that score, it a lot of times can be vastly different than what you're looking at on Credit Karma or Experian.
Yep. That's
And then
right.
the third one is the auto model score. And that's loosely based on the amount of automobiles that you've purchased or leased over the life of your credit. So when you're young, you've never leased or purchased an automobile. So that's where you get stung again with high interest rates because you don't have any history. So what I tell young adults to do is go to a credit union and get a credit union to give you an auto loan. And then they're not going to be predicated on that auto loan scoring system. It's really going to be using the financial model. And the cool thing about that too is that it gives you more buying power, because when you're younger, you want to be able to go to the dealership and negotiate terms, negotiate on the Kelley Blue Book or what the sticker price is. And you're really coming in with cash when you have a loan with a credit union. So realistically, when you are a young adult and you are building your credit, you want to make sure that you start it transitionally. Like I said, parents, when your kids are 12 years old, really add them to that retail credit card if you so wish to do so. Maybe you do it and you don't even tell them about it. Because sometimes you don't want to tell your kids. Some of these kids are super smart, and they'll walk into a store and use it. And you're like, wait a minute, I didn't go buy that sweater or I didn't go buy that purse. But so important to do that. 14, add them as an authorized user to a credit card. 16, get them that custodial credit card or that the secured credit card. And then when they're 18, now they've built their credit. Okay, and they're in a great position to get a regular credit card. Now, what's very important, Brad, is that when we are teaching our children to have these credit cards, we're teaching them accountability and responsibility with these credit cards. Because the first thing that happens, and they're not allowed to do this anymore, credit card companies, but back in the old days, I'll say, when you went to college, the first thing you saw was all these credit card companies, and they're giving T-shirts out and saying
During orientation.
Exactly.
That's right.
And
that's
saying,
where I got
hey,
my first credit card.
Come get this credit card, and what's the first thing? Drinks on me. And you're paying drinks on me for the next 6 years of compound interest.
Yeah. Well, and right now we know the credit companies are charging upwards of almost 30% interest,
ridiculous.
but it looks like the new administration is going to put a cap on that, which is terrific. But it's funny you say that. The first credit card I had was a MasterCard I got during orientation, first day of college. And that credit card's now 38 years old. And that was the card because it had the longest credit history that I used to put my kids on as an additional cardholder because it did report to their bureaus. So they had this fantastic, and you know what? They never got the card in the mail. I just tore it up. I cut it up.
Of
but
course.
they got it for the benefit of their credit. So really, really great information here, Angela. The last thing I want to talk about is the best way to manage your credit to maximize your credit score, because I know you're a super pro at that.
Yeah. So the two big pieces of the credit score pie chart are 35% and 30%. So 35% is looking at your payment history. Okay. Now, what goes into your payment history is really important to know and understand. A lot of people think it's just, when you're paying your bills and if you've had any late payments or things of that nature. But what's also in that is your utilization. So the days are over for, when grandma said, oh, get a credit card in case you need it for a rainy day. Well, no, credit card companies are like, if you're not using our credit card once every 90 days, we're not going to give you the privilege of having that credit card.
Yeah.
Okay. So utilization is now in that mathematics that is looking at your utilization, how much you use it, how much interest you use. So don't shoot the messenger. I'm just giving you tips on how to keep your credit score in a high level. Every bank and financial institution, when they are giving you a credit card that's unsecured, that is their money that they're giving you access to. So if you're not paying interest on the money you use at least one time a year, you're not going to have the highest credit score that you could have. Now, there's a smart way of doing that, by the way, Brad. So what I do with my credit cards is I will pick a certain time in the year and I'll spend $100. When the bill comes in, I pay 80%, I leave 20% to revolve, and I pay interest the following month. Now I've used the rule of credit, I've used that utilization factor, and my credit score is always in the 850s.
That is really interesting. So I've never done that. Didn't even really know that part of it, and I don't think I ever would, because the reality is you don't need an 850 score for anything. And to get out of
Yes, you do. It's for your ego.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But yeah, I mean, if your scores are 780 or above, you're going to get the best. It doesn't matter if it's a mortgage or anything else. You're going to get the best financing available. And to break yourself out of that habit, most people aren't disciplined about having the auto pay. That's what you want to do, is never break that habit.
Yeah.
So if you do that once and then you forget to reattach and do the full payment, then it's probably not worth the risk. But I will attest to what you just said, because for the first time in history that I can think of in my financial history, I've had credit card companies cut down my available credit for non-usage. And I have never had that before.
Yep.
But literally, this is in the last couple of months. I like to switch it around. I didn't have American Express for a long time. I was a little upset at, the financial market meltdown in 2007 and 2008. They basically chopped me off for no reason. I always had perfect credit. And so I held some resentment there, and I didn't get an American Express card for a long time. But I just redid it. And so I moved a lot of my spending to that card. And within 2 months, the previous bank took down my $130,000 credit limit to like $70,000 because I'm using it less. And so I thought that was very interesting, and maybe it was a telltale of what they expect to come in the future. I didn't know the reason for it, but what you're telling me now is that's become
they're
part of their
monitoring
model.
that. They're managing that, because you have to think about it this way. Again, they have all the risk. And so if you're not using that money that they're giving you access to, then they're just going to take away that privilege. And again, believe it or not, that whole spin that I just gave you on using interest, they also will cut your limit for that reason as well.
Interesting.
So, a lot of people think like, well, yeah, they're getting the retailers to give them the money.
Yep.
Absolutely. But that's their deal with the retailers. You're their customer. So, you don't get the benefits of being a really good customer unless you're using that rule of thumb. Now, I do want to challenge you, though, a little bit on the fact of the 850 credit score. Now, let me tell you why.
All right.
Okay?
Let me have it, Angela.
So I work with a lot of real estate investors, okay? And, they do the real estate investing with their personal credit and their business credit. But let's say that you are going to have a month that you are investing in a property, you're going to flip it, whatever the case may be, and the utilization that you have on your credit is higher. So that's the other piece of the pie chart that I'm talking about, that 30%.
So that helps to offset any, right. Okay, I got you there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm always looking at, what if I have an event, because I'm a real estate investor, what if I have an event where I'm going to do something like that? I want to be able to have
some cushion.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. So that other 30% of the credit score is looking at your credit to debt ratio.
And you want to keep that at what, under 30%?
Yeah, the perfect ratio is 70-30, 70% available, 30% balance. But that is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, is that specifically when you're going to get a mortgage or when you have a compelling event, you're going to get a HELOC, you're going to get a car, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you want to make sure that you're managing your credit to debt ratio. Because if your credit to debt ratio is over 80%, then your credit score is going to be a lot lower. Now, it's an easy fix because if you have the liquid cash to pay it down, then you can do that, and then your credit score is going to change in a rapid fashion.
Yeah.
If you're in the middle of a mortgage loan, you can do a rapid rescore. Otherwise, what you're going to have to do is wait for the closing statement time. Now, just so you know, and your listeners know, a lot of people are always asking like, oh, well, I just paid that off last week. Why isn't it showing up on my credit report what the balance is? So what you have to do is you have to look at your statement, and at the upper right-hand corner, it will show you closing statement date. Every single one of your credit cards is going to have a different closing statement date because it's predicated on when you opened that credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that date is the date that is actually reported to the credit agencies what your balance is. Yeah. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to pay it off a day before that date. No. You have to give it reporting time. So if you want to make sure that your balance is zero, then pay it 5 days before that date. And by that date, it will show a zero balance.
Great information. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, gosh, we covered a lot of ground here. I would guess we could go easily another hour or two and get into a lot more detail. But, man, some really great information for everybody listening to this. And you're an expert. You've been doing this a long time. If somebody wants to reach you, if they want some help, if they want to set up some credit monitoring, if they want some help building their credit or fixing their credit, how do they reach you?
It's really simple. It's just my name, angelabassard.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Angela,
easy.
BESSARD.com. Or you can, I'm on social media, Real Credit Queen on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn. So, yeah.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure and so nice catching up with you. It's always fun having these chats.
Very good. All right, everybody. If you feel that we brought you value today, I'd appreciate it if you like, follow, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you on the next Blueprint.